what has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. And everybody knows it. I've never had such support. And that goes with the other ones, too. What they're doing is election interference. They're trying to interfere with an election. There's never been anything like it in our country before. This is their way of campaigning. And this is one instance, but you have 3 other instances. It's election interference. So I want to thank you for being here. We did nothing wrong at all. And we have every right, every single right, to challenge an election that we think is dishonest, that we think it's very dishonest. So thank you all very much, and I'll see you very soon. Thank you very much.
Did you pardon yourself? President Trump, are you ready to go to trial?
How is this different from the previous?
All right, former President Trump on the tarmac at Atlanta Hartsfield Airport after having been booked at the Fulton County Jail in Atlanta. We are back, and we hope now that you are able to hear us because we had some audio problems a little bit earlier, which we have been told are ironed out, as are some of our guest issues. So we press on with Shan Wu. Shan Wu, a former federal prosecutor, is with us now. All right. This is both the legal argument, right, and then also the political argument. We'll start simply with the legal argument. Where is the distinction that is being made in Georgia between what a number of people have done and continue to do in terms of challenging elections, as the former president has said, versus what he has been charged with criminally?
Great question. Very easy to answer. You challenge elections, Leland, in courts of law. And challenges that were brought in courts of law have uniformly failed. Trump's various attorneys could not bring forth any evidence about the alleged problems or fraud. The distinction, therefore, is what Trump is alleged to have done is outside the courts of law, outside the system. That's what makes it illegal. Calling someone like the Secretary of State to say, find me more votes, coming up with slates of electors who are not actually the electors, trying to look into the actual electronic counting of the ballots. Those sorts of things are not part of a court challenge. That's not how people have challenged elections. That's the distinction.
What do you make of the arguments? And it's twofold. One is that the Georgia racketeer statute that is being used here is so broad and has had problems in the past. But there's an argument that I thought was fascinating made by a former Georgia prosecutor, which is the biggest difference, perhaps, between the federal charges against Donald Trump and the charges in Georgia, is that the charges in Georgia we're going to hear read in court because there will be cameras in the courtroom. Does that bring to us a better level of transparency? And I'm going to interrupt my own question. We have gotten now the mugshot of the former president that we understand, will be selling a lot of merchandise based on. Some of his supporters are already putting out their own version of their mugshots to show solidarity, but we'll put that up on the screen. I'm just wondering what you make of the difference here between the cameras being in the Georgia courts versus the federal courts where everything will be in court and we won't see anything.
I think it's really important that we should have cameras in the courtrooms for transparency. Sort of a microcosm is Trump's mugshot that we're now seeing. He should be photographed the way any other defendant is photographed. And in the 21st century, the public has a right to be able to see public court proceedings. It's really an archaic notion that the federal courts won't allow cameras in the courtroom. The courtrooms remain public. It's just that people could be able to see them, and they won't let that happen. I think it's really important that in Georgia, we can see what's happening. You can see the arguments. You can see the witnesses. The American people can make their own judgments, even though they're not the jurors, but the so-called court of public opinion. They have something to see. They don't have to depend on an artist's rendering. They don't have to depend on reporters to tell them what happened. They can watch it, and I think that's really, really important, especially in a case like this, which is arguably the most political case ever brought, in the sense of it's all about politics and who's going to win.
You brought up this case that it is the most political case ever brought, and I'm wondering, as you are reading, especially the Georgia indictment, but seeing here along these cases, that there's two burdens of proof, because we are talking about charging a former president of the United States and a current presidential candidate, two things that have never been done. But there is the court of law beyond a reasonable doubt. But there's a higher burden, which is that the crimes are so egregious and that they are so depraved, I guess maybe a word, that you have to break precedent, right? That it is imperative on a prosecutor to charge a former president. Is anything that you've seen, is there a piece of evidence that you see that could come out that's going to reach that bar?
I think it's not a single piece, Leland, but the weight of the evidence altogether. And it's interesting what you say about the precedent. I think it's really important to remember we don't have precedent in the sense of there's been a court case or rule that says you cannot charge a former president who has committed a crime. It's really unprecedented just because it hasn't happened before. I think the politics of it do come into play. I think there's been a lot of reluctance on the federal prosecutors, on Garland's part, to want to bring a case. And that's the feeling of the political pressure, and that's the lack of precedent. But legally, there's no bar to that.
All right. Shan Wu, we appreciate your time. Obviously, between the Georgia cases and the federal cases, we will be meeting again. Thank you for joining us in 2 hours. The president landed in Atlanta, and now we have his mugshot. So you will be seeing this an awful lot, both from the left and from the right, used for very different purposes. And that is the face of the former president. Here's Dan Abrams. Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.